My name's Kelly. I'm a financial counsellor at Anglicare in Launceston. Today we're talking about renting, what you need to know. Some of you may be already renting or some looking to find a rental, so hopefully this information and tips will be useful. So when looking for a rental, there's a few different types of rentals. There's private rent, which is usually via real estate agents, or it might be privately advertised by the landlord. There's also share houses, so you can rent a room in a house where somebody else is on the lease. That's usually just a bedroom and use of the bathroom and kitchen and all the facilities in the house. There's also public housing, so that's managed by Housing Connect. They manage all the specific public housing properties and community housing properties across Tasmania. There is a long wait list for non-priority cases for housing, so it can take up to a few years to find a house. So if you're considering public housing, I'd probably get yourself on the list as soon as possible. You also must be a low income earner to be eligible for public housing. So generally rentals are advertised on places like Domain, realestate.com, Gumtree, also Facebook Marketplace often has a lot of rentals. Just keep in mind that Gumtree and Facebook are not regulated, so just make sure you check these out properly and that the landlord is doing the bond process via Service Tasmania. You can receive support to pay your bond via Housing Connect, so they're the same people who manage housing properties as well, but they have a different area for bond support and rent arrears support. Also emergency accommodation, if you need to be housed safely, they can help. So what Housing Connect can help with is to pay your bond. So it's not actually paid directly to you, it's paid to the real estate or the landlord, and then to Service Tas. So you don't get the money yourself, but it's paid on your behalf and then returned to Housing Connect at the end of your rental, as long as there hasn't been any damage to the property or missed rent. Housing Connect can also sometimes help with if you fall behind in rent. They do have an eligibility criteria though, that you must be able to afford your rent ongoing to receive support to pay your arrears. Bond assistance not available if you rent a room in a share house, but it is available if you are renting with someone else but your name is on the lease. Housing Connect can actually also help to apply for private rentals, and they can assist you if you're in crisis and need to be housed safely. So there's their website and phone number there. Living in a share house, there are lots of positives to living in a share house and also some potential negatives to sharing a space with people. The biggest benefit of living in a share house is obviously shared costs. So usually it's half the rent if you're sharing with someone else, power, internet, sometimes groceries, otherwise people just generally buy their own. And it's really good to have company and to be around people. It's good for your mental health and socially it's really good. So some of the negatives that can occur is arguments and tensions, even with friends that you wouldn't expect that would occur with, and that happens when you're living in a small space with others. It's also hard to share space, particularly if you share a bathroom, a lounge room and a kitchen. It's hard to manage who uses what when and make sure people aren't late and things like that. There can also be financial issues. So something might happen and someone stops paying the rent or the power or something like that. Maybe that they lost their job or something unforeseen happened, and that causes a lot of tension, and then the responsibility falls to the other person or the other people in the house. Ways to kind of try and manage any potential negatives is to talk openly and honestly with your housemates before you move in. Set rules about the house, how you'll respect each other's space and privacy, and how you'll deal with any issues that may arise. It could be a good idea to just write it down together and keep it somewhere just so you can revisit it and talk about it if any issues do come up. It can be expensive when you move. Sometimes rental properties don't have a fridge or a washing machine, so you'll need to buy those when you move into a house. Always consider buying secondhand from op shops, Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree. There's often heaps of washing machines and fridges and TVs and all those kinds of things at really good prices. Also, there is NILS, which is the no interest loan scheme, and that provides no interest loans for white goods. NILS actually also do other types of loans for second-hand cars, medical expenses, and some education expenses. If you're on a Centrelink income, repayments are made via your Centrelink payment, so it's calculated so that it's very reasonable. Generally, the repayments are about $40 a fortnight if you get a fridge or something like that. So it's really reasonable. There's no interest, which is great. And at the moment, NILS are actually also taking applications from people on low incomes. So not necessarily on Centrelink, but if you're on a low income, you can contact NILS and see if you're eligible for one of their loans. Also, just keep in mind when you move into a rental, always complete the condition report. It's really important. Take photos and return the report to the real estate. This way you can't be responsible for any damage that occurs to the property, and that may have happened before you moved in. There's been lots of cases of damage being in a property and then the person moving out and they're responsible for the damage that occurred before they even got there. So just make sure you cover yourself and take photos and complete that report properly and return it. So Aurora rent usually doesn't include your electricity, so you'll need to set up a power connection in your name. There's the details there for Aurora. If you're sharing a house with others and you're all contributing to the power bill, you can add additional people as an authority on your account. That means they can call up and make payments over the phone, or they can you can give them the details to make payments online. Other people can also set up direct debits from their bank or their Centrepay account to your account, or can give you the money each week or fortnight to pay the power bill. Remember, if the power is in your name and others don't make repayment, it's only you who's responsible for the account, not them. And always, when you leave the property, remember to disconnect the power from your name. If you're having trouble with managing your Aurora account, Aurora have a really good program called the Your Energy Support Program, the YES program. It's a longer term hardship program where they monitor your usage and set your payments so that you're paying what you use in power each week or fortnight. So say you have a debt outstanding with Aurora and you can't make that whole payment up front, you can contact the YES team and they'll put you onto the YES program. You'll start paying what they've calculated you need to pay every fortnight to keep on top of your power account, and then you can just pay a little bit extra off the debt every fortnight and manage it over the longer term. They're a really great program and a really great team, so they can be contacted on 1300 10 20 10. The Tenants Union is a community legal centre, and they work on behalf of tenants, and their goal is to provide free legal advice, representation and education, as well as advocating for the improvement of tenants' rights. So for any issues with renting, you can contact these guys for information, and if you need support to progress further with it, they can do that. They have a really good handbook on their website called Don't Panic, A Tenant's Guide to Renting in Tasmania. I would really recommend, if you're renting, having a look at that. It's just got lots of different things about your rights for renting, and there's their details there for the Tenants Union. Breaking a lease in a rental property, there are costs involved. So if you need to leave the property before the end of the lease, the owner of the property or the real estate managing it needs to put somebody into that to continue on the lease, and they'll try to do that as soon as possible. There's no set fee for breaking a lease in Tasmania, but you'll generally be required to pay the rent until a new tenant is found, as well as any advertising and letting fees incurred by the agent and the landlord when they're searching for someone to replace you. You can help move it along by sharing the property listing on social networks. You can pay for additional photography, and you can offer to pay the first 2 weeks rent of a new tenant's lease, and that would encourage interested parties to move in sooner rather than later. Make sure you're always asking as well, friends, family, if anybody's looking to rent a property, that yours is available. And always check your lease, as the specific details about what happens when you need to break a lease will be in that, in your lease documents. Budgeting. So one of the most important things when you're renting is to budget, and this will help to make sure you're paying your rent, your power, your groceries, and anything else important that you need to pay every week or fortnight. It's a really good idea as well to kind of make a plan with yourself to review your budget every month or every 6 weeks. And that can just be having it on your computer and opening it up and just adjusting it, adding in any extra payments you're making. It's a good way to just keep track of how you're going with your spending. And it does to kind of alert you to whether you're spending money unnecessarily on things. If you're finding that each fortnight you're left with less money than you thought you would be and you're not sure where it's going, a really handy tip is to use one of the spending apps on your phone. There's lots of free apps to do that, or even just writing it down at the end of the day, what you've spent money on that day. Then you can look at it over a week, and you might be surprised at how much you're spending on things you didn't realise, like coffee or takeaway. Yeah, it's a good way to reduce your spending and just be more observant of your spending. Also, make sure you're trying to put an amount aside for savings or an unexpected cost account, so that if anything happens you didn't expect, for example, your car breaks down, you'll be less likely to need to use rent or other important money. It doesn't really matter how much you're putting aside, just that you're putting aside something every fortnight to get yourself a bit of a buffer. Groceries. When living on your own or with housemates, it can be expensive to buy groceries. Some people share the costs and buy things in bulk and then cook. Other people in share houses or renting with others still just buy their own groceries. Some tips for budgeting is to make your lunch for uni. It's much cheaper than buying takeaway food. Research recipe websites and buy ingredients to make meals. Then you can freeze or refrigerate them for the next few days. Buy items on special in bulk if you can. Shop in the evenings, because bread, milk and meat are often on special at night time. If you can buy meat from the butcher or the deli rather than pre-packaged meat, it is cheaper. And fruit and vegetables from markets, if you're able to get to a market, is often good quality and cheaper. The other thing too is try not to shop when you're hungry, because you buy things you never would normally buy if you weren't starving hungry, because everything looks good in a supermarket when you're hungry. Internet and phone plans. If you need to have the internet in your rental property, shop around for internet plans that have what you need. Make sure you're not paying for too much data that you aren't using, or not enough, and then you have to pay to top up your data, and that can often be very expensive. It can be cheaper to bundle your internet and your phone plan together. And most internet and phone providers now are moving more towards month-to-month plans rather than contracts, which is really good, because if you need to get out of the plan, it's easier on a month-to-month plan. You don't have to worry about being locked into a contract over a long period of time. If you don't use the internet or your phone that much, consider prepaid. There's some really good credit deals around where sometimes you can roll over your credit to the next month and things like that. If you're sharing a house, just make sure that each person that uses the internet contributes to the bill. And that's the case for all the expenses in the house. So it's having that discussion with everyone about what everyone will be using and needing, and making sure you split the costs evenly between all of you. Okay, so that's, just some information and tips about renting. Financial counselling is a free service for anyone. There's no eligibility criteria to come and see us. We provide phone counselling as well as face-to-face counselling, and we're working alongside UTAS at the moment, conducting appointments via video conferencing. So if you'd like to come and see us to talk about anything related to money, please talk to your TUU student advocates, or the link there to complete a referral online. Thank you very much.